So another Warrior Cat story arc comes to a close, and it's only natural that I make a video about it. I wasn't too happy with the ending to last arc, however this time I'm definitely more positive. I think overall they did a better job of wrapping things up. There are a couple things I will complain about in this video, but rest assured I do like the book. It's just the flaws are often the most interesting discussion points. So first things first, I don't want to keep the people who clicked on the video for the title waiting. I will talk about RiverClan's next leader. It is Icewing, now Ice Star. She was absolutely not who I predicted would be leader. The writing team didn't really make it obvious right up until Ivypool's Heart, where Icewing is not only heavily featured, but her entire character arc revolved around her caring about RiverClan. There was a bit of timeline conflict created, because the book where she becomes leader, and the book that explains why she would be a good leader, are not the same. And in order for Icewing to return from her quest before Frostpaw names a leader, they have to create an entire side plot about Frostpaw being in a coma for 2 weeks. The writing team admitted they were having trouble plotting the books to take place at the same time, and they were not kidding. This is messy as heck. And in terms of Ice Star being leader, I think she's more interesting than Hairstar, and that, in hindsight, another option such as Mothwing would make a lot less sense. But those are the highest compliments I can give her. She really needs to prove herself over time. And she chose Owlnose to be deputy because he was slightly less evil than the rest of the RiverClan cats, I guess. Her best reasoning is that because he was able to recognize he didn't want to be leader, that makes him humble, and therefore deserving the position? Which I mean, no. Like, one of the major plot points of this arc was that Owlnose was the least qualified cat to be leader. He hasn't even had an apprentice. They make a big deal of that in Sky. So Ice Star is literally breaking the code to make him deputy. I don't know what the writing team was trying to cook with this choice, but I think they burned it. Duskfur had 3 apprentices. She, along with Mothwing and Icewing, were the only cats to stand up to Splashtail until the other clans forced everyone else to. Sure, Duskfur is on the older side, but Ice Star can always just replace her when it's time for her to retire. It would at least give her time to make a better choice than Owlnose. This dude tried to kill Sunbeam. Sure, he redeemed himself and fought against Splashtail, but he only did so once the tides of the battle were turning against him. Owlnose seems to flip-flop to whatever side has power and abandons his morals. He's indecisive, he's wishy-washy, he has no conviction, and quite frankly, he's not fit for a leadership role. The Light in the Mist had the problem of giving all the heroic moments to Bristlefrost and, for some reason, Firestar, robbing Root Spring, Shadow Sight, Squirrel Flight, and Bramblestar of more action, when they were more relevant to the arc as a whole. And now, of course, they repeat the pattern of dumping most of the focus onto one cat. Frostpaw is far and away given the most attention and heroic moments, but we get a slightly better balance because Nightheart gets some hero moments too, between saving Mothwing and trading himself for SkyClan kits. And Sunbeam, while not quite as flashy, still gets involved in battle, and has a huge focus in the narrative with her coming to terms with the end of Berryheart. The biggest problem was Ice Star not being involved at all, but I get that they had to trade that away in order for her to be in Ivypool's Heart. One of the issues with the 5th book of this arc, Wind, was that it felt like they had to make a lot of excuses to prolong the conflict further, but here they finally stop delaying and get right into it. The battles start almost immediately, and carry on for more than half the book. Aside from a scene where Frostpaw and Tigerstar become extremely dumb in order for them to fall for a trap set by Splashtail, it flows pretty well for the entire duration. There is a pretty long epilogue for the final 40% of the book, but this is mainly for the waiting for Ice Star to come back issue I already mentioned. This is a bit long for wrapping things up, but thankfully we get a couple of really good chapters to conclude the stories of Curlfeather and Berryheart, chapters 14 and 15 respectively. But the side plot of Frostpaw wanting to give up out of nowhere, being in this weird coma, the drawn out drama of cats wanting to leave RiverClan without waiting to see if Frostpaw woke up, basically chapters 16 and 20, that was all major filler for the sake of satisfying the timeline. I don't really care for that. Another one of my complaints for Wind was wondering how RiverClan cats could possibly still support Splashtail after all he did. And in this book, they come up with the dumbest reason. He just threatens kits and assumes that every cat will bend to his will. And they do, somehow. And it's not the fact that he uses this tactic that bothers me. He's a villain. Of course he's gonna be evil. It's the fact that it doesn't make sense that it works. He never hides the kits, so the RiverClan cats could sweep in at any point to defend them, especially so when he's out of camp. And then after the fact, every single RiverClan cat uses Splashtail's threats as a crutch, some cure-all negotiation tactic on how they're not actually evil, because somehow fighting for Splashtail was protecting kits. But if any RiverClan cat even cared for the kits in the slightest, they could have just ran over to the other clans in an instant, like our main protagonists did. They clearly didn't care. I don't believe you, Sneeze Cloud. And as the reader, you know Splashtail's never gonna actually do it, because that's way too dark for modern warrior cats. We are long separated from the days of Broken Star. So there's a lack of tension there too. He's very much like Soul in that he talks big, but never delivers on his threats. And I get that that's part of his character, but in building that character, they made the conflict just not make sense. On his own, killing Hairlight was the only big evil he accomplished, which caused his own swift and immediate downfall. If Soul didn't exist, he'd easily take the cake for weakest warrior cat's villain. Now let's talk about villain deaths. Barry Hurt's death ended up being so predictable that I actually predicted it. In my video after Win released, I said she would die protecting Sunbeam. This would also be a parallel from Book 6 to Book 1, connecting Curlfeather and Barry Hurt. Both are evil moms, both go to the Dark Forest, but in Curlfeather's dying moments, her last thought is protecting Frostpaw as she boosts Frostpaw up a tree to safety before herself, and warns her to trust no cat as she is killed by the dogs. I think Barry Hurt will be put in a similar situation, and in her dying moments, she will choose to protect Sunbeam from Splashtail. Not a full redemption arc by any means, but a show of moral grayness like Curlfeather, where she can put her daughter's life before hers, despite being evil. Barry Hurt and Sunbeam have had their differences, but I think when it comes down to it, Barry Hurt does not want to see Sunbeam die. And that's what happened. Sacrifices are Warrior Cat's most used redemption arc method. Juniper Claw, 1-star, Needletail, Snow Tuft. It's their go-to for morally gray cats they want to convince the readers have redeeming qualities, but don't know how to write them into future books. It feels like the writers were at a loss for how they could possibly redeem Barry Hurt and still have her fit in among the clans, so death was their choice. I do find it oddly touching that in spite of being evil, she spent some of her last days asking to see Sunbeam, so despite it being the easy way out for the writers, I feel the moral complexity of Barry Hurt is rich enough to justify it. Now Splashtail. I talked so much trash about how boring it was that Ashfur and Darktail just died to water, and there's a scene where he was fleeing by swimming away, and I was so prepared for Warrior Cats to three-peat on this, but somehow, someway, they broke the pattern and gave us an actual cat fight. I'm so happy to be wrong. Frostpaw kills Splashtail, in between Light Leap giving the assist, and Frostpaw having some warrior training, and also getting Divine Wisdom mid-battle, and Splashtail being a young and stupid warrior. They actually do strike the balance of making it believable that Frostpaw could kill him. So yeah, thank you Warrior Cats for actually having a villain killed in a way that is fitting for the build-up you give to him. This was an excellent decision. Oh, and our two main medicine cats finally got their full names. Frostpaw became Frost Dawn, and Whistlepaw became Whistle Breeze. Frost Dawn, they explain it because she is a new Dawn for RiverClan. Perfect, amazing, the actual best choice they could have made. It's so pretty. But Whistle Breeze? Why? That's so ugly. Whistle Song was my personal choice, and I just got way too attached to that. I really wish she was Whistle Song. But oh well. So yeah, that concludes all my thoughts on Star. Alright, bye everyone.